one of the things we learned really early on is that you don't want to do this anonymously. The internet was, was obviously around and stuff, but we found that the best way for us to loan money is just to get to know the people we're loaning. And let me just be clear what 75%
Yes,
means.
I was going to say you need to educate people on that.
Yeah. So you take the purchase price and the rehab estimate, nothing else. The purchase price, the rehab estimate, add them up.
Okay.
That total has to be 75% of the ARV.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. I have Jeff Smallowitz with me, and I personally actually asked him to be here because he is a private money lender. And when I say private money lender, I mean literally he lends his own money out. He has a full-time job. He is content and happy. I'll read his bio so you get to know it. And he lends out his money that he has earned in his life as a private money lender. And he has formalized a practice for himself and his wife that seems to be relatively foolproof. We're going to go through this though, because as you know, I always ask at the end of the show, what's something that went wrong? And he's going to describe to you what went wrong and how he fixed it. So Jeff Smallowitz is a full-time consulting aerospace engineer who loves his career and pinches himself every day in disbelief that his clients actually allow him to work by their sides. With real estate experience ranging from out-of-state house flipping, a portfolio of overseas residential and commercial properties, and many performing notes secured by flips, Jeff and his wife Ellen rave about lending. They're also disgruntled stock investors, me too, who dumped their stock portfolio years ago in favor of investing in their after-tax money and their retirement funds into first position performing trust deeds, while only wishing they had started sooner. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks.
It is so good to have you here. I'm so excited. I always say excited. Forgive me. I say excited every show. I'm so excited because I like bringing valuable content to my listeners. And one of the things that we talked about years ago was being able to get you at the FIBI meeting, my For Investors, By Investors Pasadena meeting, which now you're finally going to be there after 2.5 years of COVID. It feels like, I think it's only been 2 years, but it feels like it's been almost 3. So I'm really excited to have you at my meeting. And now I get to have you on my talk show for that same reason, right? Because you're going to be able to share about what are safe lending practices that people can do while they have a full-time job and they're investing their own money, their own retirement in lending. So give us a quick, how did you get into this? Like, you're an aerospace engineer. What got you into private money lending?
Yeah, so my wife and I have been, sort of dabbling in real estate for a long time. My wife, Ellen is my wife's name. And we've been dabbling in real estate for a long time. Actually, she's from Malaysia and her family owns a lot of real estate in Malaysia, and she got me more interested in it. I was actually flipping houses out of state with a partner in Cincinnati. This is in the mid 2000s. And I got out of that after a while. Fortunately, I got out just before the market crash, but then we decided, so I've got a little bit of flipping experience. So I'm comfortable flipping houses. Then in the later, I guess about 2006, 2007, we were looking to buy some apartment buildings in Long Beach. And we go to the real estate clubs, and a lot of the clubs then at the time, smaller clubs, including Matt Owen's real estate club in Long Beach, you'd stand up and you'd say what you have, what you want, what you're looking for and all that. And every month I would stand up and I'd say, well, we're still looking for apartment buildings. We haven't seen anything. In hindsight, should have bought everything, but that was a long time ago.
Okay, that was a long time ago, and who knew the multifamily market would be the beast that it's become?
If you knew then what you knew now. Anyway, so I would stand up at every meeting and I'd say, this is what we're doing, and it was getting very frustrating. And one meeting, with absolutely no thought, no planning, no research, no nothing, I just stood up and said, well, we're still looking for apartment buildings. Maybe we'll loan our money out. And this was in 2009, I believe.
Right. Okay.
And if you recall, 2009 was the depth of the housing market.
I do.
And you could go to a real estate club and there'd be 15 people in the room with real deals. I mean, really, really good.
Real deals.
Good deals,
yes.
And no money. There were no lenders in the room.
Yep.
So, I've said this every once in a while, everybody's entitled to get lucky every once in a while.
Right.
We got lucky and we happened to be in the right place at the right time. And by the end of the meeting, I was best friends with people that I didn't even think knew me. So they were,
Yes. They're like, hey, we need to get to know each other. You got cash, I got a deal.
So what you just said is exactly what happened. It's the getting to know each other part. And this goes into sort of the safe lending part of this. One of the things we learned really early on is that you don't want to do this anonymously. The internet was, it's obviously around and stuff, but we found that the best way for us to loan money is just to get to know the people we're loaning. And having flipped a little bit, having had a little bit of experience flipping, I knew that this is not something we want to loan. We don't want to loan money to people that have never done this before. And I hate to say that, to people that are brand new here. I apologize if
I don't either. I don't loan money who's never done it before. Sorry.
But the only way to know whether you know what you're doing is to get to know you. And so what Ellen and I started doing, we'd go to the real estate clubs, we'd tell people what we do, and we'd go look at their properties. We'd go to have lunch with them. We'd get to know them a little bit. And frankly, we get to like them. And we make sure they like us. And that's really important because I don't want to loan money to somebody that I don't know, that I don't trust. And this became a big part of what we do. So our process generally is to get to know you at a real estate club. We have a list of, what can I say, criteria that I put together over the years after having been asked 1,000 questions. I have an email that I send to people after we've gotten to know them that just describes our entire process. Mm-hmm. So we just do that over and over again. And it's worked out for us. Very simple.
The being able to talk to people and being able to develop a trust and a like for them is huge. I often tell people who are professionals in the field who are looking for money, and they're like, well, how do I get other people's money? And I'm like, you keep showing up. When people see you over time and they see you at the same meeting, doing the same thing over and over again, you keep showing up, they will eventually go, you've been coming to this meeting for 6 months. Clearly you're not going to disappear right away. You've been here for 6 months, and maybe I could hang out with you a little bit. I could see your projects. I can see what you're up to. Proof's in the pudding, right? Go out to lunch, visit their projects. And then eventually it's like, people will trust you with their money. Cause it's a little like, the chunks of hard money lending are generally, to me, larger, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000.
You're talking, or more in Southern California. You're talking life-changing amounts of money, right? Yeah. And Ellen and I have worked really hard for this money. We're not about to hand it over to somebody that, we don't know. Now you could argue, well, we are secured by the property, but if the property turns out to be a disaster, I don't want your property. I just don't want it.
There's a subtlety in that also, because you take a property that was worth, let's say, 350,000, and it's not central LA, it's in Coachella Valley. It's worth $350,000, right? They want to rehab it, it'll be worth $550,000, right? But then now they've stripped it down. It's no longer worth $350,000 with all the drywall missing and all the electrical missing. So now they've taken it below the purchase price down to like 200,000. And now they have to build it back up again. And if you get stuck with it after demo, which demo seems to go really quickly in flips. I don't know if you've noticed, but demo's like boom. And then it's like, if they fail, it's generally after demo that they start to fail. It's where they usually start to stumble. Right. And so now you've just agreed to take a house that was worth 350 that you're loaning against to make it worth less, to make it worth more. Right?
That's exactly right.
So if you just like, do I really want to take over a house that's worth less that I now I've lost 100,000 on my loan and I have to put 100,000 into it to even get it back. So now I've got 200,000 in it and it maybe is worth 250,000 more. And then I still have escrow costs. So now I'm zero.
Right. So every once in a while we get lucky and we get to loan on a shelf. Some previous flippers have busted a property. And that's nice because from that point on, every time they put a drywall screw in, it increases the value of the property just a little bit. But you're right. So the value of a property will drop on a flip initially because they're tearing it apart, and then the value starts to go up as the rehabber,
So what's some of the
completes
things
job.
on that list? Because you get to know them, you get to like them and trust them, but you got to go deeper.
Yeah.
So what's
So
the go deeper? What is that?
So first and foremost, above everything, as I said, and I will belabor it 1,000 times, you really want to know who you're loaning to. That is the most important. You want to make sure that, and I would put that, on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe,
A 20.
9.5 or something, right?
It's most important.
A lot of people focus on the numbers. We don't as much. And in fact, it's got to be a good deal. So we will only loan to people that are very experienced. And very experienced people tend to be better at finding good deals. We run the numbers with them. And in fact, what we do, and this is really common, I'm not making anything up here, but it really works. You've heard of the 70% rule of thumb.
Yes.
We use 75%. And
Okay.
I'm able to show, and if you have a property, and actually at at the presentation I'm going to give, I can show why this works. But for 75%, the rehabber, if the value of the property is more than about $250,000, and pretty much everything in Southern California knows
Yes.
$250,000, they'll make between 10 and 15% of the ARV in profit. So if it's 75%, they'll make 10 to 15%. That's a good deal for us. So if somebody's doing a house that they can sell for $700,000, they'll make $70,000, $80,000 on that if they can keep the numbers, within a 75% range. And let me just be clear what 75%
Yes,
means.
well, I was going to say you need to educate people on that.
Yeah. So you take the purchase price and the rehab estimate, nothing else. The purchase price, the rehab estimate, add them up.
Okay.
That total has to be 75% of the ARV. So for example, I'm making some numbers up here. You find a property that has an ARV of $1 million.
Mhm.
You can't spend more than 750,000, which is 75%, which
Between
means
purchase and construction.
Purchase and construction. So if the house is, you pay $650 for it, $100,000 for the rehab. That would be a good deal in our view. Once you start getting up much over 75%, you're going to not do too well. Once you hit 85%, you're breaking even. I can't tell you how many deals people bring to us that are 80, 85, 90%. It's just crazy, some of the properties you see. But the more experienced house flippers understand this, and they're able to get good deals. And this is who we focus on.
So what else is on your form that you have people fill out? Do you do a background check? Do you ask for background check information or anything like that? Credit check?
Your background check comes when we first meet, and we go to lunch, we go to dinner, and we look at your properties. That's the background check. I'm not gonna. We don't do skip tracing. We don't do any of this. We don't we don't do credit checks. And in fact, if you want to do a credit check, do a credit check. But I will tell you, in my view, there's absolutely nothing on a credit report that tells me that you know how to flip a house and make a profit. Nothing.
Good point.
Zero.
Good point. There's nothing on a credit check that tells me that you're an expert in the process of flipping.
Right.
It tells me that you can pay your cell phone bill.
That's exactly what it is. That's right.
Right.
That's right. And this credit reports are consumer credit. We're not lending on consumer credit. We're lending to flippers that are experts at flipping houses. So credit report means absolutely nothing to me. Same thing, bank statements. So when we first started, we thought, wow, we better ask for bank statements. Yes, we want to make sure everybody has money to flip a house. What we found is that we're doing business with people that, are doing 5, 10, 20 flips at a time. If you look at their bank statement today, let's say they a couple of days ago, they sold a couple of houses.
Yeah.
And they have 7 figures in their account.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, they buy a few properties.
Yeah, it's not going to be 7. It's 50,000.
$1.75. So what we rely on, is the fact that you know what you're doing and you're an expert at flipping houses. If you're flipping 10 houses at a time and you've been doing this for a number of years, I'm not worried that you don't know how to manage your money. You know how to manage your money. I would be worried if you were doing this for the first time, which is why we don't loan to first timers. So we don't look at bank statements. We don't look at credit reports. Your background check occurs when we get to know you. And that's how we do it. It's much more personal.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. How many of their past projects do you either want to see or do you want to confirm exists?
So the way we do it, and what we put down on our criteria is you've got to have done 3 properties in the last 2 years.
Oh,
okay. In reality, which is not that many really, but in reality, the people we're finding are doing, 5, 10, whatever flips at a time. So it almost becomes irrelevant. But if somebody calls us up and they said they've done 3 flips in the last 2 years, we'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay.
If they called us and they said, this is our first time, I would politely thank them, and we wouldn't be interested in loaning at this time.
It's funny because mine is 6. Not
okay.
In the last 3 years. Mine is you have to have done 6 projects previously, and I've never put a timeline on it. And you make me think that maybe I should. But
well, I don't know. I could easily go with what you're doing too. I don't know. You just need the experience.
You just need the experience. You just need the proof and the experience.
That's
so one of the things that I do before I lend out money to a flipper is that I ask for their previous addresses, at least a handful of them. And then I actually go to the assessor's website and look in the history and make sure their name is actually on these properties. Yeah.
Yeah. What we do, typically, I haven't done that. What they'll do, they'll hand us a set of MLS reports or something showing that what they did, but of course that could be anybody's, right?
Yeah, but still.
We go, we look at the proproperties. We walk.
Yes.
We walk in the door, and I want to see studs sticking out of the walls.
Yes.
That's the better proof for us. And if they can walk in the property, I'm assuming it's not someone else's property they're taking.
Yeah, no, because the head of construction is going, dude, who are you? What are you doing here? Right. So you walk onto existing sites and you're like, no, clearly these are their existing sites. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So let's move on to the question. So safe lending habits, you will go through this in particular. You'll go through, in your speech at FIBI, which will be on the FIBIPasadena.com website or FIBI Pasadena YouTube. Your speech will be there, but it'll take another month for it to get there. So it won't be until March, April, late April, right? So for those people who can't make it to the FIBI Pasadena where you're presenting, right? But some of the topics that you're going to be covering, Yes, you're in March. You're recorded in March. It takes us a month to get it onto the website.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. So you're going to cover things like the basics of becoming a private lender, questions to ask a potential lender. So you're going to come through that and what to watch for. And also you're going to go into and the third that I love is that you not only go through what you need to do as a private lender, but also simple rules for lending and borrowing and how to meet and qualify borrowers and keeping it legal, usury and licensing. And you're going to go deep on that, I hope, because that's part of why I'm going to have you there, is because it's not just qualifying that side, it's meeting the legal and usury sides as well. Right.
Well, it's not just that. It is super important, and a lot of people don't do this. A lot of borrowers don't do this, but in particular, if you're doing this out of state, and I don't recommend this, but if you are borrowing out of state, make sure you understand usury and licensing in the state that you are borrowing in. In part because these are questions you need to ask your potential lender. And if your potential lender can't answer them, then you're not talking to somebody that knows what they're doing. Because usury and licensing are right at the top here when you're borrowing money. So one way to protect yourself is to understand usury and licensing in the state that you are borrowing in.
So perfect. And you're going to go through that in.
And I'm going to go through it for California. I don't know all 50 states.
For California.
Right.
So I want to get to your story because I want to make sure we hit that in the time we've got. So you have a great story, because I always ask my as far as part of my real estate breakthrough, I always ask, tell me a story. Real estate isn't easy. Real estate has things that go wrong. So why use real estate to break through to your financial freedom? Part of it is that real estate also grows you up. Right? So the purpose of the Real Estate Breakthrough Show is to show you can use real estate to break through to your financial freedom, but you got to be willing to work hard to do it. So give us your story about this fraud incident that you told me about, because I think there's a good education there.
Yeah. So one of the things I feel really strongly about is, and I see this, you go online and you see people talk about getting ripped off, and they ask questions. How do I know if my lender is real? Because they have no idea. They're just trying to do this anonymously on a website, and you have no idea who you're talking to. Well, we had a similar problem. Ellen and I, we're a bit old school, I guess. We have an answer machine at home on our home phone number, which we have not given up yet, but we probably will. And so one day I come home, and we don't give this phone number to anybody. The only phone number we give out is our cell phone numbers.
Okay.
So I come home, and on our answer machine, there's somebody that says, I'll just make a name up here. Hi, my name is Joe.
Right. Make up
Hi,
a name.
no, he goes, hi, Jeff. This is Joe. I sent you a bunch of money for a loan that we're supposed to close on in a couple of days. And I go, would you please call me? And he left his phone number. I go, I don't know what this is about. I don't know any Joe, and we're not supposed to be closing on any loans in a couple of days. So I give him a call. It's got to be a mistake, right? I talked to him, and he apparently skip traced me. That's how he was able to get my home phone.
Right.
Yeah, but not my, I guess if you skip trace, you can't get a cell phone, I guess.
No, you can. There's just a lot. I've done skip tracing. There's just a lot of numbers, and your home
Okay.
phone probably being the most consistent was towards the top of the list.
Okay, well, he called me, left a message. I
Right.
call him back, and he tells me, he says, where's my money? I'm closing soon. And I go, I don't even know who you are. We loan money, but I don't know who you are. And how did you find out about me? He goes, on your website. Well, Christina, we don't have a website. Okay, I just told you how we meet.
Yeah, you're an aerospace engineer who loans out your retirement money to people that you meet at real estate meetings. And
that's exactly right.
Mano and mano, right? Like, I know
exactly
who you are.
Right. I don't have, actually now we do, but then I did not. And so when we started our company, and when we first started, we were just lending in our own name. And then in 2015, we've been doing this now for about 12 years, but in 2015, we formed a company, Private Lending Direct LLC, and I reserved domain names for Private Lending Direct, Private Lending, a whole bunch of variations, .com, .net, whatever. And I knew that we were only going to be doing business as Private Lending Direct, so that's what I reserved. Well, it turns out somebody reserved the name Private Lending Direct LLC.com. And like an idiot, it wasn't me. And so they created a very, the lesson learned there, very professional looking website. And it had my name on it, my home, it had my name on it. It had our home address on it, home address, nothing like getting ripped off by somebody. And now that you have their home address.
Oh my, right.
Yeah. And it had all kinds of, criteria for lending and all that. And very generic looking, but it was a very nice website. People are calling. And when the person answered, and there was a phone number on there that was not mine, it was probably Google Voice or something like that. I don't know where the number came from. But when you called the number, somebody would answer the phone saying, he's me. Say, hi, this is Jeff Smallowitz. How can I help you? And he would rip them off. These are people that, were not experienced enough to know that you never lend, if you were going to borrow money, never pay upfront fees. There's one that's like the safest thing I can tell anybody. If any lender wants you to give them money upfront, almost certainly you're being ripped off. Now, there may be for a credit check, for people that take credit check, there's $50 or something. Never send money in. There's no such thing as private mortgage.
If they're having you pay all your points up front, which can be anywhere from 2% to 5% worth of points up front before they'll even lend you your money, that's when you start getting questioned. You start having to question.
That's correct. Yeah. And just so you know, somebody got ripped off into the tens of thousands of dollars. So this was real money.
Okay.
This guy convinced, he was apparently very slick. I never spoke to him. I never called the phone number. But what happened?
Yes. So tell us how you fixed it.
So what happened over time, this went on for a number of months. I was getting a lot of phone calls from people, and I would always write their number down. I tell them who I was and all that. They understood. They knew they knew I was being honest. Apparently, I didn't sound like this guy. He had a thick foreign accent, I am told.
Okay.
Anyway, so I would take their information down. There's not much I could do, but I would go to their bank. So if they told me that, let me back up a bit. I would always ask them, how did you wire the money to him? How did you get the money to him? One guy sent Bitcoin, in fact. I have no idea how that worked, but and I couldn't help him at all.
Right.
But they would always send me, I would tell them, send me whatever he sent you. And he always seemed to use the same form with wire instructions on it that would go to all different banks. I've never understood how that worked. But anyway, he would get them to wire money, all different banks. I would go to the bank. So if it was Wells Fargo, I would go to the bank. I would sit with the manager at the bank. I would tell them what happened, and I would file a report myself, and I would tell them, go to your bank, file a report. Now,
right, because now the bank has the person who supposedly was the receiver, who was not the receiver, and the person who was the sender have both filed a report.
That's correct.
Now they're missing the third party, the person who actually received the money. And now they can confirm the person who wired the money isn't lying, because the person who's supposed to receive it has also filed the report.
That's correct. That's correct.
Complete file.
I did this at every single person that called. I would go to their bank, including a bank I happen to have gone out of state, and I was able to go to their bank. That was just a coincidence.
The actual bank.
The actual bank. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Their bank.
Their actual branch.
Yeah. And so I filed the reports, and then I would have a conversation with them. And I don't want to get into too much detail here, because I don't want to help people get into the business of ripping others off. But it is possible to reverse a wire. It is possible. You've got to talk to the right people.
Very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But if you tell them the right things, and I had a long conversation actually with bank security at one of the banks, and he was telling me, probably telling me things he shouldn't have told me, but anyway, he told me, and I was able to help some people get some of their money back. I don't want to get into all the details, but it does happen. The bottom line here, though, is don't go online to get your money. I mean, you have no idea, because if you'd had done all the things that everybody tells you to do with me, so for example, you could have looked up our company, you could have gone to the county registrar and looked to see that we have real loans out, and we really do. You can see deeds of trust in our name. You would see that. You could check me out. Mm-hmm. We are licensed, but at the time, this is years ago. Well, when this was happening, it wasn't that long ago, but we weren't licensed. You could look up a license. You could see Private Lending Direct also is in good standing with Secretary of State. Check all the boxes you want. You would have thought you were talking to me and that we were going to send you money, and you still get ripped off. So be really careful if you're going to do this. Try to get money online, borrowing from strangers. You have no idea who you're talking about. And I'll add one other thing, and I didn't tell you this earlier, Christina. If you looked that phone number up on that website, the fake website, if you looked it up, you did, or just Googled it, there were 3 other lenders that came up as well. So this guy had made
multiples using the same number,
same phone number, and I assume those companies were legit companies as well. I don't know. I never spoke to them. So
how do you finally? So you helped people by they filed a report, you filed a report, the bank had the maximum opportunity to be able to potentially solve this and identify it and solve it as a fraud problem. So that was amazingly helpful on your part. So if you ever get ripped off, then obviously if you can find the money, the person who was supposed to receive the money, now you've bookended it and the bank can do something about the fraud.
If they want to, yes.
If they want to, and if they're allowed to, and they're legal and blah, 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 then they can do something about the fraud. That to me is amazingly important, because for those people because wire fraud is amazingly common these days. We went through a whole period right before COVID where it was like, you just didn't send a wire unless you called the person who was receiving the wire on their end first to confirm all the information, even if you got it via email and would look like their email. Right. So that's good to know there is something that can be done, but it's probably very difficult.
Yeah.
So how did you bring this guy down? Because we got one more minute. How did you bring this guy down?
Well, I don't know that I brought him down.
I
but
know,
what we
but you did a version of it.
I would love to say I brought him down.
Right.
I've never met him. I don't know who he was. What we did in our case, so there are a couple of ways to take a website down. Really hard to take a website down, but there's one obvious way you can do it. And in our case, we had talked to lawyers. You can file lawsuits and all that for trademark infringement and get a website taken down. We didn't do that because I was able to find out. You just go online, and he had months to go before he had to renew the domain name. And he just didn't spend the $10 to renew the domain name. And I just picked it up really quick. And so I was able to get it. So right now, if you go to that website, you will see a one-page. We don't use websites. I mean, I really don't use.
But you go to that one.
If you go to that one, you will see a warning that basically says scam alert on it.
Yeah.
And so if anybody calls you with my name,
right,
and we haven't met eyeball to eyeball,
it's not me.
It's not me.
It's not you. Jeff,
so we just waited it out.
You just waited it out. Jeff, that's a great story. That is perfect. We're out of time, so I'm sorry to say, but we will have a lot more story from you at the FIBI Pasadena meeting.
Yes, I look forward to it.
We'll have it on YouTube. We'll have it, encased on YouTube for decades to come. Jeff Smallowitz is how do you stay safe in private lending? We'll be able to teach multiple people, and I really look forward to it. So this is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Roku TV, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes. Just look under Real Estate Breakthrough or at christinasuter.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.